Oklahoma budget proposal hits the floor. Norman makes a move away from plastic. Election 2017's wave of Democrats. This is OU Nightly. And the newest budget bill is still being voted on the House floor as we speak. I'm Shea Smith.
And I'm Abby Green. The $132 million funding bill, if approved, would put an end to the state's budget crisis. The bill calls for an increase on cigarette tax by $1.50, increase on oil tax, a tax increase on a low point beer, and a 6% tax increase on gasoline. Supporters and opponents of the measure gathered at the state capitol today.
I think there needs to be somebody that needs to stand up for the state and, make a decision what's best for us and not for me. I think there's a lot of me's with their hands in the pot, and I think somebody needs to say that it's time to look at what's best for all Oklahomans, and our state provides several core services, and I think those services should be funded.
And Storme Jones was at the Capitol today. He's joining us live on set. Storme, right before you came on, they were still debating. We're just getting word in that now they are voting. So first off, what was the mood at the Capitol? Stressful? Was it getting heated? How intense was it? What were the feelings?
Sure. First, let's get to that vote. Right now, it is 70-29, and the vote is still open.
Okay.
It takes 76 votes to pass. So the mood at the Capitol was really anxious today, I think.
Okay.
Some of the oil companies and oil proponents, oil lobbies bust people in. But there are also members, proponents of mental health and substance abuse services and the state healthcare organizations there on hand today. So there was a lot of people. There was a lot of signage. These groups really trying to make a last-ditch effort to make their side heard.
Okay, and you said that it needs 76 votes to pass. Was it leaning one way or the other while you were at the Capitol? Did it seem like it was going to pass, or did it seem like it was going to die?
Well, we know right now there's 70 votes in favor, still 6 votes short of that threshold. Actually, the 3/4 vote threshold required to increase spending bills, pass spending bills, is something that's only been around for 25 years. So if this does pass today, this will actually be the largest tax increase under that 3/4 vote. And that 3/4 margin, that's what's held up revenue-raising measures in the past in the Oklahoma legislature, because there's 72 Republicans. So you have to have some Democrats on board. And raising the gross production tax is what's really helping Republicans try to pull the Democrats on at this point, because the cigarette tax, the fuel on the tax on motor fuel, is something that Democrats view as targeting lower class, middle income people.
Yes, and so if this bill passes, which it's getting very close to, when will the Senate hear it? It's on the House floor right now, getting voted on. We should know any minute if it passes or not. When will the Senate hear it if it is passed?
Right. So normally the Senate would have to have a day to read it. The first reading takes a whole day. So under normal rules, it would be Friday, but they can suspend rules, they can change rules. But there's a strong indication that the Senate would pass this. Governor Mary Fallin and Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats have been more willing to pass these tax increases than House Republicans. So getting it passed through the House Republican caucus is really the biggest hurdle for this revenue-raising measure, and it should have a more easy way through the Senate.
Okay, well, they're close to it. Thank you so much for joining us. We will keep you updated throughout the newscast. As soon as these votes come in, we'll let you know.
The Oklahoma Transportation Commission approved a work plan calling for the repairing and replacing of nearly 400 bridges and improving miles of the county roads for the next 5 years. Transportation officials claim more than 40 of the planned bridges will use bridge beams from an old interstate expressway, and nearly 300 bridges have been called structurally deficient. The plan calls for improvement of more than 8,000 county roads, and the project is estimated to cost around $5 million. Cleveland County is among those countries benefiting from the plan.
And Norman could be joining the ranks of cities across the nation that have gone plastic bag free. Kenneth Adair gives us a deeper look into City Council's plan.
The Norman City Council thinks it's time to start groundwork to eliminating plastic bags in town. Plastic bags have become an issue that members of council as well as residents of Norman find to be very problematic to the environment. There's no policy dealing with an issue like this, but the council believes that now is the time to make a statement.
Those are the plastic bags, they get into, the creeks, they get into our stormwater system, they get into our water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, and they cause damage and they cause backups and can cause problems, in the community, just not only from an appearance standpoint, but also environmentally impact on wildlife as well as our water.
The City Council will be meeting a week from Thursday to begin crafting a plan to make sure plastic bags like these won't be hanging around Norman's environment. Kenneth Adair, OU Nightly.
All right, thank you, Kenneth.
And Marisa has a look at today's weather.
That's right, guys. It's been pretty cold recently and even cold enough for snow. This is a radar loop from last night, and we had some snow out in the Panhandle and even in the northwestern part of Oklahoma. This has been the first significant snowfall for this year, and people were tweeting about it and posting about it. So this is a tweet that we found with a little bit of snow and ice on a windshield, and the snowy weather is not going to stick around, and I will have all the details like that coming up later in the show.
Thank you, Marisa. And Taitum Wilson joins us now from News Center with more on yesterday's election results. Taitum.
That's right, Shea and Abby. Democrats celebrated last night's election victories. Analysts say a number of the race results are expected to set the tone for next year's midterms. The wave of Democratic victories could signal a turning political tide. The biggest win last night was the Virginia governor's race, where Democrat Ralph Northam came out on top.
Divisiveness, the hatred, the bigotry, the politics that is tearing this country apart that's not the United States of America that people love.
Another big winner was New Jersey Democrat Phil Murphy. Murphy will replace Governor Chris Christie. President Trump took to Twitter to respond, where he congratulated all of the deplorables who gave him an Electoral College landslide victory. And AT&T's pending merger with Time Warner hit a major roadblock when the Department of Justice on Monday told AT&T they need to sell major assets or they will be forced into a legal battle. The DOJ antitrust chief told AT&T they would only approve their purchase of Time Warner if they sell off CNN's parent unit or DirecTV. The standoff has caused speculation that the Trump administration is trying to retaliate against CNN for its coverage of the president. AT&T said today that the timing of the deal's closing is uncertain. And the U.S. Treasury Department issued new modifications to its Cuba sanctions program this morning. The changes include an export ban on anything controlled by or working for Cuba's military, intelligence, and security services. The Treasury Department says it wants to continue to allow Americans to travel to Cuba. The changes come months after President Trump ordered a stop on transactions with Cuba, reversing Obama-era efforts to improve relations between the U.S. and Cuba. And Shea and Abby, he may not be president anymore, but his civic duties continue. Former President Barack Obama reported for jury duty today in Chicago.
Man, to be on that jury duty, thank you, Taitum. And still ahead on OU Nightly, an in-studio interview with Native American Heritage Month.
And a special celebration for Veterans Day. A professor was struck by a vehicle last night near Catlett on campus as she was walking back to her car. The professor from the Department of History and Science was walking down the crosswalk on Elm when a car failed to stop in time and collided with her. She ended up being taken away by emergency vehicles, suffering from non-life-threatening injuries. The driver suffered no injuries, but was cited for failure to yield to a pedestrian, which could amount to a fine between $100 to $500. In the coming weeks, we will be doing an in-depth look at OU's crosswalks, how often these accidents occur, and what can be done about it.
To prepare for Veterans Day, the Wall That Heals made a pit stop in Norman before the Wall makes its stop for the weekend in OKC at the History Center. The Patriot Guard riders gathered to plan for the escort. The Wall is a half-size replica of the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. The site manager said that veterans from across the country follow the Wall.
Oh, absolutely. It's just a great way to come down and number one, pay tribute to the fallen soldiers from Vietnam. A lot of emotion that happens along the way, and then just for them to be able to come and get together and tell stories and you know, remember those guys.
The Oklahoma History Wall That Heals exhibit opens up after a ceremony tomorrow and will remain open 24 hours a day until Sunday. Admission is free for all.
And the Norman Veterans Day ceremony will be this Sunday at Reeves Park. It'll feature helicopter displays, a car show, and fly over 2 T-6 Texans, training aircraft used during World War II and the Korean War. It kicks off at 2 p.m.
And Harlee Toothman joins us with a special guest discussing the events for Native American History Month. Harlee.
Joining us today is Cultural Affairs Chair Julia Spotted Bird, and in honor of Native American Heritage Month, the American Indian Student Association is having several events this month. So can you tell us about the football pregame exhibition?
The football pregame exhibition is the first of its kind for us. It's going to be happening like it's in the name, pregame, before the game. It's going to be where we're going to parade in the 39 tribal flags, including the Crow Nation, in honor of our Princess, Miss Cordelia Fallsdown. There will be singers and drummers there to sing the Kiowa flag song, which is the equivalent to like the national anthem for us.
Awesome. And there's also going to be a fall benefit powwow on Sunday the 12th. What is the significance of this event?
The fall benefit powwow is kind of like the smaller little sister powwow to our bigger spring powwow. The money raised goes towards the organization as well as any funds that we need for the spring powwow as well.
And where will it be held?
It will be held at Longfellow Middle School in Norman, Oklahoma.
And Julia, why do you think it's so important to celebrate Native American Heritage Month?
I think it's important because there are a lot of people that aren't aware that Native Americans are still here. Like, a lot of people just think that we have died off and everything, but we are still here, and I think it's amazing that we're still thriving and promoting our culture as well as showing people and educating others.
Thank you for joining us today. That's all the time we have, so we'll go back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Harlee. And Sydney Forsee is here with the latest on Jim Bridenstine. Sydney?
Yes, you guys, the nominee to head NASA, Jim Bridenstine, is on his way to a full Senate confirmation hearing. The Senate Committee of Commerce, Science, and Transportation advanced his nomination today on a narrow party line 14-13 vote. The Oklahoma state rep is a controversial choice as he denies climate change science and has been critical of other lawmakers. Bridenstine says if chosen, he will run the space agency on a science-based agenda with a consensus. And speaking of NASA, the agency says the hole in the Earth's ozone layer is the smallest it's been since 1988. The hole has shrunk 1.3 million miles in the past year. The hole was discovered in the 1980s and was at its biggest point in 2000, almost being 12 million miles wide. Scientists say warmer weather conditions and reduction of CO2 emissions are to thank. If efforts continue, scientists predict the hole will return to the state it was discovered in by the year 2070.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I think it's pretty exciting that efforts to go green are finally working.
Well, I'm definitely all about going green.
Well, your last name's Green, so you kind of have to.
Yeah, that just fits perfectly. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Sydney.
And still ahead on OU Nightly, is something wrong with your phone? We have the story up next.
And Marisa has more with weather.
That's right, guys. Fall is finally here. I'll give you all the details coming up next. Welcome back to OU Nightly. We're taking a live look outside. We can see all these trees are finally starting to change colors here in Norman. Fall is definitely here. Look, we have some pretty red trees and green trees. Finally fall, and it definitely feels like it. We have 49 degrees right now. Those clouds have moved out, so we're definitely seeing some sun right now. But this is not going to stick around very long. We have this 24-hour temperature change. The lower part of the state is still feeling the effects of that cold front, and the northern part of the state is trying to get warm. It is trying to warm up, but that is not going to happen in the next couple of days. As you're going into this evening, it's going to cool down to 36 degrees tonight. those clouds are going to clear out, and that trend is going to continue across the state. 35 degrees here in Norman. Definitely cooler than normal due to that cold front and the cold air lingering around. And here's what's going to happen. We have this high pressure system that is dominating and a cold front that's going to come through and shift the winds around. We're going to have it come through, and by the time it moves out, we'll finally have some steady southerly wind that is going to keep our temperatures warm. And it's not going to warm up quite tomorrow with a high of 59 tomorrow here in Norman and highs in the low 60s. But as we round out the rest of your forecast, you'll see that those clouds are going to stick around for most of the week, but we'll finally get that warm temperature coming in on Saturday for the game on Saturday evening.
Okay, well, it's been way too cold for my taste, and also I'm glad that it is getting warm for the game. That's all that matters.
It will definitely be much warmer this weekend.
Thanks, Marissa. And rah-rah TC who? Sam Brown has more on the Sooners matchup against the Frogs on Saturday.
Yeah, Abby, that's right. Baker and the Sooners have a season-defining game on Saturday against Kenny Trill and the TCU Horned Frogs. I'll have more on that, and I'll talk about the struggling OKC Thunder. Sports is straight ahead. Welcome back. The OU Sooners came out on top Saturday in one of the craziest Bedlam games ever, but Sooner fans have one person to thank for that win, and that is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield played out of his mind against the Cowboys, setting a new school record with 598 passing yards. The performance also helped him surge to the top of the Heisman race. But while he was simply incredible, the offensive line was not.
I feel as though, we didn't play our best game up front. Obviously our skilled players and Bake and, Marquise and everybody else was able to do what they were able to do. But up front, I think, besides statistics, coming from a, fundamental and, a real standpoint, I don't think it was our best game up front.
Football rankings came out last night, and there weren't very many changes at the top. Georgia kept their #1 spot with Alabama, Notre Dame, and Clemson rounding out the top 4. Meanwhile, in the Big 12, 4 teams are in the top 25. OU and TCU are on the outside looking in at 5 and 6. After the Bedlam loss, OSU dropped 4 spots to #15. And after finally falling back down to earth on Saturday, Iowa State dropped 6 spots to #21. Now, these new rankings set up an epic weekend for college football with not 1, not 2, but 3 top 10 matchups. Right here in Norman, Baker Mayfield and the Sooners square off against TCU. College game day is headed down to Miami as the Hurricanes host #3 Notre Dame. And top-ranked Georgia has a tough test against #10 Auburn. So if you're a fan of the game, keep your eyes on the TV or you might miss something. All right, now let's go and talk some Sooner basketball, starting with the men. Coach Kruger and the boys will be playing against East Central University tonight at 7. This will be their final exhibition game before they start non-conference play on Sunday. Meanwhile, last night the women won big against Southwestern Oklahoma State, and they showed off some skills while doing it. Gabby Ortiz with the behind-the-back pass right there to Anna Lanusa, the freshman phenom. She hits the 3. She led the team with 22 points, and Vivi Pierre-Louis had a double-double. Final score 109-65. Switching over to some Thunder basketball, Russ and the boys dropped their 3rd straight game last night against the Kings. Russell Westbrook heated up early, hitting the 3 right there. He finished with 20 points and 12 boards. But the story was OU's very own Buddy Hield. He's been a huge spark for Sacramento lately, coming off the bench, and led both teams with 21 points. The two teams were neck and neck for most of the game, but the Kings eventually pulled away in the 4th quarter. They took the W 94-86. 3 UCLA basketball players were arrested Tuesday for shoplifting during the team's trip to China. One of them was LiAngelo Ball, Lonzo's younger brother and the son of the infamous LeVar Ball. The 3 players were released on bail Wednesday morning, but are required to stay at their hotel until the Chinese legal process is over. And in the top play from last night's sports action, we take you to the rink, Las Vegas and Montreal, and that's Pierre-Edouard Bellemare with a filthy spin move between the legs of the defender, and that just slips it past Charlie Lindgren. Beautiful moves, great handles. Now, guys, Montreal did lose the game to Vegas 3-2, or Vegas, lost 3-2 to Montreal, but that has to be the goal of the season so far.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Sam.
No problem.
And still to come on OU Nightly, stay with us for more on the glitches you've been seeing on your iPhone.
Come on into the jailhouse, rock with me, let it rock. Everybody let it rock. Everybody knows
I'm Sophie Richter at the OU Nightly Update Desk. This morning, pilot Courtney Washburn died of his injuries suffered in a small airplane crash. On Saturday, the plane crashed approaching Alva Airport and came to rest upside down. And voting on the budget bill continues with a vote of 70 to 28 with 1 vote outstanding. It's 6 votes short of passing. Governor Mary Fallin is on the floor. She said she's opposed this bill before and has urged lawmakers to come to an agreement. That's it for now. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you guys for watching OU Nightly, brought to you by the Gaylord College of Mass Communication and Journalism.
And we will see you back here tomorrow night live at 4:30.
Have a great evening.
Good night.